Okay, okay, we're back. We're back. The next song comes from the Carter family, specifically Mother Maybelle Carter, who it is said wrote this song while the family was traveling in their tour bus over through Wyoming and over near Sherman Pass. They saw a track gang working, and Maybelle Carter wrote the words to this song, "Railroading on the Great Divide." This is what I'd like to call a kind of a kit bash song. I've taken some of the words and rewritten it and to reflect my one of my two favorite railroads, the Colorado Midland. So let's try "Railroading on the Great Divide." Back in the 80s, I left my old home out in the West. No money, no home. I went drifting along with the tide and landed on the Great Divide. Railroading on the Great Divide. Nothing around me but the Rockies and sky. There you'll find me as years roll by. Railroading on the Great Divide. Breaking the Midland down Old Ute Pass. Through summer's breezes and winter's cold blast. One day a blizzard, the next a rock slide. Well, that's railroading on the Great Divide. Railroading on the Great Divide. Nothing around me but the Rockies and sky. There you'll find me as years roll by. Railroading on the Great Divide. As I looked out across the trees, number three's coming the fastest on wheels. Through old Leadville he'll glide with pride, and then roll across the Great Divide. We're railroading on the Great Divide. Nothing around me but the Rockies and sky. There you'll find me as years roll by. Railroading on the Great Divide. We're railroading on the Great Divide. Nothing around me but the Rockies and sky. There you'll find me as years roll by. Railroading on the Great Divide. Railroading on the Great Divide. Railroading on the Great Divide by the Carter Family. The song for a song for which I perhaps get more requests than any other is The City of New Orleans. The City of New Orleans was an Illinois Central train that ran between Chicago and New Orleans. Amtrak still runs the City of New Orleans today. And the train was really fast. It made 921.6 miles from Chicago to New Orleans in just less than 16 hours, and for an average of about 58 miles per hour, including some of the Illinois Central's 100-mile-an-hour trackage through southern Illinois, the last 100-mile-per-hour speed limit outside the Northeast Corridor, until some of the more modern corridor trains were put on. This is a composite version, John Denver's chords, some of his words, basically every lick and technique I've learned, I've put into this song. So the City of New Orleans, ride south of me on the City of New Orleans. Riding on the City of New Orleans. Now that's Illinois Central's Monday morning rail. 15 cars and 15 restless riders, 3 conductors, 25 sacks of mail. Now we're out on the southbound Odyssey, and the train pulls out of Kankakee, flying past the houses, farms, and fields, passing trains that have no names, and the freight yards full of old gray men, graveyards of the rusted automobiles, singing good morning America, how are you? I said, don't you know me, I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the City of New Orleans. I'll be gone 900 miles when the day is done. Dealing cards with the old men in the club car. Now that's penny a point, ain't no one keeping score. Won't you pass that paper bag that holds the bottle? Now feel the wheels rumbling through the floor. Now the sons of Pullman porters and the sons of engineers ride their father's magic carpets made of steel. And their days are full of restless, and their dreams are full of memories. Rhythm of the rails is all that they feel. Singing good morning America, how are you? I said, don't you know me, I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the City of New Orleans. I'll be gone 900 miles when the day is done. Now it's evening on the City of New Orleans. Dinner time is Memphis, Tennessee. Halfway home and we'll be there by midnight. Through the Mississippi darkness rolling down to the sea. And all the towns and the people seem to fade into a bad dream. The old steel rails still ain't heard the news. The conductor sings his songs again. The passengers will please refrain. Now this train's got to disappear in railroad blues. Singing good morning America, how are you? I said, don't you know me? I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I'll be gone 900 miles when the day is done. Singing good morning America, how are you? I said, don't you know me? I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I'll be gone 900 miles when the day is done. Singing good night America, I love you. I said, don't you know me? I'm your native son. Of New Orleans, I'll be gone 900 miles when the day is done. All right, let's go for some scratch-built songs now, or scratch-built song, if you want to keep it in the model railroading vein of thinking. If you've ever been to my hometown of Baltimore, perhaps you've been to the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Museum and seen, perhaps if you've been there, you've seen my very favorite locomotive, B&O engine 5300, a big 462, the P7 class. In 1927, the Baltimore and Ohio was 100 years old, and the railroad sponsored a birthday celebration for itself, and President Daniel Willard commissioned 20 new passenger engines of the P7 class. So they were gorgeous engines. They were painted Pullman green to match the cars that they pulled at the time, with gold leaf striping and lettering and maroon pinstriping inside the gold leaf. They were just gorgeous. The 5300 is and they were named, I should say, they were named for the presidents of the United States, the first 20 presidents of the United States. And in other words, they were called the president class of locomotives. But you can still see engine 5300 in the B&O Museum. This is called President Washington. President Washington, 5300, high-wheel racer in green, red, and gold. Leaving D.C. on the Capitol Limited, Dan Willard's pride still with us today. 1927, the nation's first railroad, a birthday to celebrate 100 years. The finest of engines, 20 in number, named for the presidents of this great land. President Washington, 5300, high wheel racer in green, red, and gold. Leaving D.C. on the Capitol Limited, and will its pride still with us today? Aberdeen Station in anticipation, star in the east at the end of the rail, growing in brilliance at 80 an hour. He knows best, leading westward once more. As President Washington, 5300, high wheel racer in green, red, and gold. Leaving D.C. on the Capitol Limited, Dan Willard's pride still with us today. Heart-pounding cadence dissolves into thunder. Whistle floats high on an ocean of sound. Arm racing greeting as past to sea speeding. New York behind him to Washington bound. That's President Washington, 5300, high wheel racer in green, red, and gold. Leaving D.C. on the Capitol Limited, Dan Willard's pride still with us today. The deck plates are crashing, the cab is a-quivering. Fireman wonders if he will survive. Flying as swiftly as time on the weekend, gliding through Rockville at 105. That's President Washington, 5300, high wheel racer in green, red, and gold. Leaving D.C. on the Capitol Limited, Dan Willard's pride still with us today. President Washington, 5300, high wheel racer in green, red, and gold. Leaving D.C. on the Capitol Limited, Dan Willard's pride still with us today. Right, that was President Washington, and that last verse was a true story, believe it or not, told to me by a man who was a fireman on the 5300s between Washington and Cumberland, Maryland. He said that was a story of his first trip when he felt the cab shaking and the deck plates banging, and he looked up and the speedometer was pegged right on 105 miles an hour, and the engineer was just smoking a cigar, looking on as though nothing were going on. The next song is also about the Baltimore, Ohio. It takes me back to when I was 17 years old, back in August of 1964. And I was on my very first long-distance trip on my favorite train, the Capitol Limited. Still runs between Washington and Chicago. I was riding from Silver Spring to Chicago and spent most of my time up in the Dome car. If you've ever ridden the B&O out of Washington, you know it's a beautiful stretch of track along the Potomac River into Cumberland and then up over the Allegheny Mountains on Sand Patch Grade, and you go into Pittsburgh about midnight. And So I was in the Dome car on the way up over the Allegheny Mountains, and a young fella came up in the Dome with a guitar. And this was years before I ever dreamed of playing guitar, but he began playing folk music, and the passengers in the dome car started to sing along with him. And I don't recall what songs he played specifically, except for one. He played Woody Guthrie's "Beautiful This Land Is Your Land, This Land Is My Land," and my hair stood up. I was looking out over the Allegheny Mountains and the Youghiogheny River, and it was just mind-boggling to a 17-year-old B&O fan. The Capital Limited was a train that you could set your watch by. It was always on time. However, I dozed off in the dome car that night and woke up to find us quite late. It turns out that a freight train derailment had delayed the Limited, and he got out of Garrett, Indiana, 150 miles east of Chicago, just less than an hour late, lost a little more time getting out of town, and was finally just over an hour late with less than 150 miles to go. And they turned the Limited loose. As they say, they gave him the railroad, and the speed limit at the time was 79 miles per hour. My notebook shows that we were a lot closer to 100 miles an hour than to 80. We made, for instance, we made 79.1 miles in exactly 1 hour, including a station stop. And I'm here to tell you that's pressing the 79 mile an hour speed limit, I'll tell you. We got into Grand Central Station in Chicago 19 and a half minutes late. He made up nearly an hour's worth of lost time. That's pretty much on time by today's standards. But I walked past the engines as I left the train, and I looked at them. I said, I know what you guys were doing out there. And they just hummed, just turn over, vroom, 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 real nonchalant like, but they had been closer to 100 than 80 for much of the way across Indiana to make up that time. So this song is one that I put together. Couldn't, of course, be content with Woody Guthrie's lyrics, and I put together this version of "This Land Is Your Land." I call this the Capital Limited version of "This Land Is Your Land." This land is your land, this land is my land, from the Alleghenies to the New York Island, Chicago's lakeshore to Potomac Valley, singing this land was made for you and me. As west I travel, I'm left to wander at the Blue Ridge sunset on Potomac waters. Just below me, the wheels chorus, singing this land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from the Alleghenies to the New York Island, Chicago's lakeshore to Potomac Valley, singing this land was made for you and me. As I went riding on that B&O railway, I saw above me that sparkling skyway. Far below me, the Youghiogheny, singing this land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from the Alleghenies to the New York Island, Chicago's Lakeshore to Potomac Valley, singing this land was made for you and me. And across the mountains, that steel city, blast furnace glowing in the midnight hour, and on the hillside, the houses dreaming, singing this land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from the Alleghenies to the New York Island, Chicago's Lakeshore to Potomac Valley, singing this land was made for you and me. Sun arising, the dust clouds rolling, 'cause the caps are flying across the wheat fields of Indiana, singing this land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from the Alleghenies to the New York Island, Chicago's Lakeshore to Potomac Valley, singing this land was made. This land is your land, this land is my land, from the Alleghenies to the New York Island, Chicago's Lakeshore to Potomac Valley, singing this land was made for you and me. Singing this land was made for you and me. That is my program. That was my scripted program for the day. Do we have any questions or comments about the songs?
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Okay, I'm getting Reaper. Yeah, well, there's a few questions. One of them is, when did you start your singing career?
Well, that was in 1973, and I was detailed for a 2-week vacancy as a small town station agent in Crete, Nebraska, on the Missouri Pacific. I was a clerk and telegrapher for the Missouri Pacific, and then became train master on the Missouri Pacific, and spent 13 years on the railroad. But I borrowed Crete, Nebraska, was 75 miles from my home in Omaha, and rather than go home every night, I took a cot and a sleeping bag and slept in a little station, washed up in the sink in the morning, that sort of thing. And So on my time off, I had borrowed my sister's cheapo guitar and practiced my best friend had taught me the first three chords to the Rock Island Line is a mighty good road, you know, that old song. And so I practiced that in the station. The town policeman came by, excuse me, to see who the new agent was. He saw the guitar in the corner and he said, "Oh, do you play?" I said, "Well, sort of. I've been playing for a week." And he showed me some licks and some more chords and strum or chord patterns, that sort of thing. So that's where my career took off, or started, if you call it a career, was 1973 on the Missouri Pacific.
Wow. And what motivated you to sing with railroad themes?
Well, as I say, I've been a railroader as long as I can remember. It's a long story that probably isn't applicable here, but I like to say I've been a railroader since before I was born. And my best friend, who was a rail fan, still is, and who taught me to play guitar. And we used to play railroad songs, and as part of our love of the railroad, and so that it just sort of came naturally.
Wow. And what is your involvement in the railroad?
Well, I was a clerk and telegrapher on the Missouri Pacific. I hired out in 1971, right after college and grad school in the Army, and I handled the paperwork for the outbound shipments of freight, of all kinds of freight for the Missouri Pacific out of Omaha, and did all the different station jobs. I was a yard clerk, worked out in the yard for a while, and behind the desk, behind the typewriter. And then after 11 years, I was promoted to train master, and that's when we moved to Dallas. And I was train master of the Dallas terminal for a couple of years, and before I changed careers, and got to know the management side of things that way. They called me the singing train master. That's an acronym. That's a conflict in concepts right there.
You're playing at the Plano show in the fall.
Yes, indeed. Well, if COVID will allow, I've been a fixture at the Plano show for probably 15 years now. I play out by the food court. I hold down the noon clinic, we call it. I play usually for an hour or two or three until my fingers or my voice give out. And but yes, if this past time we had our precautions for the COVID pandemic. I didn't sing at that one, but I usually do.
We just have enough time for an encore. No?
Well, all right. You'll remember introducing me with my two favorite railroads being the Baltimore, Ohio, and the Colorado Midland. And I've done a couple of songs about the B&O here, so one about the Midland. So we'll even up the score with a song that I wrote. The Colorado Midland was the first standard gauge railroad in the Rocky Mountains. We call it the standard gauge narrow gauge. It's quite like a narrow gauge railroad in terms of grades and curves and operation, but it was the first standard gauge railroad. And it's, of course, a hair-raising outfit, 4% grades and mountain precipices, that sort of thing. It was a very popular railroad with passengers that wanted to see the gorgeous scenery in Colorado. Unfortunately, the USRA did the Colorado Midland in, and it was stopped running in 1918, and the track was taken up in 1920. But here is my song. I'm very flattered that this is sometimes called the national anthem of Colorado Midland fans. It's I call it Colorado Midland Dream. in the Rocky Mountains west of Leadville. On a hillside 3 feet deep in winter white. Story of the men who ran the trains back when the Colorado Midland climbed the mountains. Just a couple miles this side of the Continental Divide, where the smoke, steam, and thunder never end, where a brakeman atop the cars rode a dance beneath the stars, and the mountain wind accompanied with singing. 'Twas the dream of pioneers, a railroad reaching to the clouds and rolling through the valley far below. Among the ghosts of Colorado, calling through the mist, the Colorado Midlands whistles blow. At a place called Hagerman Pass, where the rails drove underground, at 11,005 above the sea, was the highest known to man that the railroad ever ran. And the Midlands men looked out across the world. On a cliff they called Hell Gate, the Midlands trains would wait to give the passengers a chance to wonder how the railroad had laid claim to the mountain lion's domain in the snowy peaks that look down at the thunder. 'Twas the dream of pioneers, a railroad reaching to the clouds and rolling through the valley far below. Among the ghosts of Colorado, calling through the mist, the Colorado Midlands whistles blow. Among the ghosts of Colorado, calling through the mist, the Colorado Midlands.
That was great, Tom. Just
Music
in
on the
time.
rail.
We've reached the 55, so this was really appreciated.
Thank you. That was voted the most unusual clinic at an NMRA convention I attended one time. So,
And I think it's a first for NMRAx. So
I'll bet it is too. Well, I hope it won't be the last.
yeah,
I've got a lot more songs. We could do this again.
sure. Well, thank you very much. And right now we're going to take a break and be right back at the hour. You still here? Welcome back, everybody. Our next presenter is the Secretary of the 2nd Division of the Pacific Northwest region and is an avid end scaler. He is building his first layout in many years, set somewhere on the West Coast, sometimes in the late 1920s, and interchanging with some other railroads. He spends his free time watching college and professional football, and that's not soccer, and doing stadium announcing for marching band competition. We welcome Richard Kushner. Welcome.
Thank you, Lloyd. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. Good morning to those of you on the far, far west. I'm going to talk to you today about 3D printing, but not the kind of 3D printing that is for those who've actually done some. This is for the folks that have not dipped their toes into the 3D printing waters at all. We are not going to focus on 3D printers. We are not going to focus on 3D design programs. What I want to look at today is what you should know before you join a Facebook 3D printing group and ask, I'm new. What is the best printer I should buy? Honestly, that's just like the folks who say, I want to try model railroading. What railroad should I model? It's just, there's too many answers to that question. The people that tell you will tell you what they like. They're not going to tell you what's right for you. So, the presentation does include several links to internet sites. If you can't do screen captures fast enough, there will be a handout attached to the video when it's posted on YouTube. A little bit about me. I've been doing 3D printing and design for over 5 years now, but I still consider myself a neophyte. I do not have my own printer. I use services to print my designs and other people's designs when I find ones that I like. I have been able to sell some parts to folks out there for my designs. And key to this entire process is I'm comfortable around computers. If you're not comfortable around computers, you're going to have a hard time with 3D design. And finally, I hate scratch building. I just hate it. Kits I love, but scratch building is something I don't enjoy. Drawing pictures and having them printed, now that's fun. So what is 3D printing? It's a way to spend a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money outside the layout room while still claiming you're doing model railroading. And to be real honest, it's a whole nother hobby. You can spend your entire model railroading budget for time and money just sitting in front of a computer creating designs and printing them. 3D printing has actually been around for quite some time. Uh, you're probably familiar with it. You've probably used it. On the left there is a printer that extrudes a material through this, stored in this reservoir through one of these nozzles, extrudes it onto a build plate, and that build plate is placed in a device called an oven to cure at a high temperature. On the right here, we've got several printers that take a multicolored material, extrude it through a nozzle onto a build plate, and air cure it at room temperature. And if you think I'm really being silly, there really is such a thing as 3D printed food. Uh, you've probably even eaten it. Any of you who know the US fast food joint, Burger King, they make 3D printed onion rings. Their assembly line made it, but they are 3D printed. If you've ever eaten Pringles, those potato chips that you find in cans, those too are essentially 3D printed. Now, you don't have to focus on food if you don't want to. You can use 3D printing in other domains. These tiny houses can be built in under 48 hours for under 10,000 US dollars by squirting layers of concrete into the desired shapes. As you can see down there in the bottom right, you can set it up so it can build an entire subdivision in just a couple of weeks. The reason I'm talking about this is because 3D printing is real and it's not limited to just small things. Finally, this style of printing really shows what we call extrusion printing, and that is very common in our model railroading use. So, 3D printing for model railroaders is a little more interesting, I think. You can do details, you can do hardware, you can do cars, locomotives, finished products, even scenery. You can buy from Atlas little bags of parts that are 3D printed. They sell them as 3D printed as if that's supposed to be something impressive to you. I guess they think they can charge you extra money for it, but it's 3D printed parts that you really can't tell from them if they were used on a mold. You can go to mini prints and buy all sorts of uh, animals. I don't know if they're doing people yet. Yeah, they are doing some people, but you can buy them in all sorts of scales. An acquaintance of mine has used a 3D printer that has two different nozzles on it to print his control panels. They're already made with the holes in it. They don't have to drill them. The track plan is built into it. It looks gorgeous. Uh, if you've got servo mounts, for example, I've used these on my test beds. Uh, they're much better than trying to carve something out of wood. You can do entire locomotives as well. This is, as it says, an N3 Shay, but any kind of locomotive you can design, you can build. Oddly enough, yes, you can build your own scenery if you want to. This is expensive, and I don't think you're going to want to do it, but you can do it. In summary, you can do this as buying from somebody, you can design your own, and you can print your own. Here's a specific example that I've done. This is an N-scale loading dock. The grooves you see there are half-inch scale. Comes out to, as it says, 300 thousandths of an inch, 3 thousandths of an inch, I'm sorry. And yes, you can see them on the print. You can feel them easily on the print. On the edges, all the corners are chamfered at a half-inch. These cross members are 2x4 scale, which is very hard to achieve with wood in N scale. I have not seen any. Styrene is also pretty hard to get that particular sizing. Finally, every one of these joints has a nut bolt washer casting, and you can see it right there sticking out. It shows up better if it's been painted a little bit of rust. On each triplet of legs, there's 20 nut bolt washer castings, as it were. There's 9 triplets. That's 180 nut bolt washer castings pieces. I don't know anybody in N scale that's going to take the time to put that many castings on their design. I certainly wouldn't. It's not worth my time, especially when I can get it for the low, low price of $9.95 at Shapeways, plus shipping and handling, which will kill you in the long run. So there's 3 ways to get started with 3D printing. You can get involved as a consumer. This is buying those ready-made prints from Atlas and also from other places that have libraries of stuff you can buy. You can get involved as a designer, which is primarily the way I'm doing it, just designing the prints and having someone else actually make those prints. And finally, what most people think of, it's buying a printer and printing things. Getting involved as a consumer is probably the easiest way of doing this. You don't need a printer, you don't need any design ability, but you do need good search skills. There are millions of designs available on the internet. Unfortunately, most will not be made in your scale, and you probably will need to learn how to rescale designs. This will be expensive in the long run. You're going to have to pay someone to print the item. You may have to pay for the design. You're going to have to pay shipping and handling. And yeah, I keep harping on that because uh, most of the vendors are expensive with their shipping and handling. Finally, the quality of the design is going to vary. The response time of the vendors are going to vary. It can take several weeks in some cases to get your prints. It's not necessarily very fast. But if you really need 24 pigeons in N scale, you can buy them. They're easily available. I've mentioned Shapeways. This is primarily the way I work. It's a 3D printing service, but it's also a 3D print vendor. You use this marketplace on their URL, and you get to their market. It's a huge number of files. Consider Shapeways to be one of your model railroad vendors. Designers like myself will make some of their items available for the public for printing. Shapeways will handle the order processing, printing, shipping, and billing. The designer will receive a small markup. The designs themselves are not available for sale, and the real big problem is going to be winnowing the search field down. It's very tedious. I typed in Milwaukee EF1 electric locomotive, and as you see, I got almost 200,000 results. Surprisingly, though, I did get one on the very first page in N scale. So I was very pleased with this one when it came up. But when you have 200,000 results, you can get a lot of stuff. And the reason for that is that they use an OR-based searching. So it's anything that's got the word Milwaukee in it, or anything that's got the word electric in it, or anything that's got the word locomotive in it, for example. So that's how it gets that big. Now, if you find this, and in this case, you found it in N scale, but you're somebody that likes HO for some strange reason, you could ask the designer to do a rescale, to do a modification of it. Maybe you want it in the version that after the one particular E22 had its accident and had its front end remade. Or maybe you just like his work so much that you want to have it a new item like an EF3, for example. You can ask them. They've got chats that you can ask the folks to do it. Be warned, they may not be willing to help you. They may entirely ignore you. It just depends on what kind of mood they're in. Sorry, it's just the way they are. The other way of getting designs is Yegi. Yegi is a search engine for 3D models. It's not the prints, it's just the models. It searches multiple sites, Thingiverse, Cults, PinShape, Imagine, a lot of others. It does not search Shapeways, and that's because Shapeways doesn't sell the designs. The way it works is you download the design file. Some of these do cost money, but many of them are free. You will probably have to rescale. You will find when you're searching through these that most of these items don't even list a scale. You're expected, if you're downloading designs, to be able to rescale the files. If you can't, a lot of these will not be useful to you, unfortunately. And then it's up to you to choose the print vendor. You could go with Shapeways, for example, or you could go with several of others. I did a search in this case for steam locomotive and came up with quite a few good ones. This was 9 out of 1,923 that were available. But again, winnowing the search results down can be very tedious. For example, if you put in the word Milwaukee, most of the results you get are going to be Milwaukee Tool Company things, uh, replacement parts, etc. If you put in the words engine, you'll probably get automotive engine accessories. If you put in the word crossing, you will get Christian icons. If you put in loading dock, you will get phone charging stations. So you will spend time going through all 1,923 items in this case to find exactly what you want. So there are a lot of designs out there, as I've said, and it's very tedious to go through them. You often won't find what you're looking for, and you're going to get frustrated. And that's when it's time to dust off the CAD skills and start designing your own 3D programs. Excuse me, your own 3D models. You still don't need a printer. but you've got to learn the CAD system. Your designs are limited by your skill and your patience. This will be slightly less expensive than going in as a consumer. Designers will get a markup on anything you buy from them. And who knows, you might be able to might be able to make a little bit of money by actually putting your products up on the marketplace. Your design quality will go up as you improve. This happens to be the very first uh, design I ever created and printed, a small crossing shanty. This is 5 years later, and as you can see, I've learned how to add a lot more to it with a lot more detail. I have actually, this is a picture of the print. This is a picture of the actual, of just the design. I've printed it. I haven't actually built it yet. To some extent, building kits like this is a lot like getting kits through the hobby shop. You will end up with a large stack of them on your shelf waiting to be built in the future. Again, response time will vary because you're expecting someone else to print it. The print services can have long lead times. I've seen 5 and 6 weeks at times, depending on load. Christmas, for example, is a very bad time to try and get a print. Now, in order to create your own 3D designs, you need a computer connected to the internet. You need good screen resolution. Any modern monitor should be able to do the work for you, but I have been able to do it on a 14-inch laptop monitor just fine. I much prefer working on my twin 24-inch monitors. It just makes life so much easier. But you can do it on smaller screens. Just don't try to do it on your 1980 version Radio Shack computer with a green monitor. It won't work. You do need a 3D modeling program, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And you need patience. You are going to have to spend time learning the tools. You are going to have to explore, try new things out. You see, 3D design is very much like scenery. There are a lot of different ways to do the things you want to do. Your first attempts will not be as good as your later attempts, but once you understand the tools, it's really hard to do something outright wrong. It will be workable, it will be usable. Just keep working at it and practice until you get it right, or at least until you get it the way you like it. So, what's the best 3D software? I hear you asking. As most of my other answers are going to be, it depends. And oddly enough, it depends on what you know already. Most people like their first 3D design software, the one they pick first, the best. And that's not surprising because it's what you spend the time learning, growing up the learning curve. So anything you've learned there, you already know. You don't have to relearn it when you try a different one later on. Now, if you already have some package that you've picked up from work or from school, go ahead and use it. There is no reason not to use those the package that you're familiar with. Go for it. If you don't have a experience with any, but you've got friends who use them, go with the one they use. That way you can go ask them for questions much more easily than you might be able to go onto the vendor forum or something like that. So they all work. They are all good. Some are easier to learn for you. Some will be easier for you to produce designs that you want. And some may work on your computer. There are some that just won't work on your computer. One thing to remember though is don't let someone else tell you what you can and can't do. I've had somebody tell me that the package I use simply cannot be used for serious work. Well, I don't know what he considers serious work, but I certainly have been able to do quite a bit of work with the package itself. I know commercial designers who use that exact same package. It's right for me. There are three styles of 3D software, or there's three aspects is probably a better term for this, of how 3D design software works. One is how to do your work. Is it line-based or shape-based? Another is where you do your work. Is it on the desktop or is it on the browser? And finally, there's the cost to do the work. You can get free packages and you can pay lots of money for packages. Line-based versus shape-based. Well, line-based is traditional drafting. Think T-squares and triangles. You draw lines and angles. You start with a blank sheet and start drawing lines until you get what you want. You just keep adding lines. Shape-based, on the other hand, is adding and subtracting shapes, stretching and pulling faces. In essence, you start with a cube or think of it as silly putty. Most packages in reality are combinations of the two, even though they have a overall general style. So for the shape-based tools, you can draw lines. And in the line-based tools, you can add shapes, but they have their own natural style. The desktop versus browser aspect of it is for the desktop application, the application runs on your computer, and this will not work on Chromebooks. I found that out the hard way, darn it, when I got a Chromebook. Um, the work is saved on your file system, and it doesn't require an internet connection to work. It does require it to upload it to the design service, to the printing service, but you can take your laptop to the beach and happily design away. On the other hand, browser applications run in a browser window. So Internet Explorer, Edge, Chrome, just like any other website. Your work is saved on the cloud in this case. Now, maybe that's your own cloud, such as your Dropbox file system or your Google Drive, for example. On the other hand, it could be the vendor's site, and they may have restrictions. They may not allow you to do certain types of designs. They may have restrictions on the names that you can call it. And worse, they may retain ownership of all of your designs. You may suddenly find a design you've done available on the market that they've started building. It does require an internet connection to work. This is unfortunate in some cases if you're sitting at a beach, but on the other hand, if you're sitting in a the third aspect is cost. And let me be honest, straightforward up front, you don't need to pay for good packages. Do a Google on free 3D modeling software. You will find a lot out there that have free trials. There are a few that are actually free, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But what I suggest you do is download the trial versions, view their tutorials, experiment, play with it, ask questions on forums, get a sense of how it really works. Because as I said earlier, they all work. And key to know is they all have a learning curve. And in reality, they can be fairly steep learning curves, but they're not different learning curves in that sense. So don't let somebody tell you that, oh yeah, this one doesn't have any learning curve at all. I was able to use it right away. That may be true. Maybe because they already knew a very similar package. It may be because they're very comfortable using a lot of different CAD packages. You may not have that experience. And note that some of them will make sense to you and others won't. For example, personally, the line-based systems make sense to me. I'm an old-time drafter. I used to draw maps. The shape-based ones just don't work for me. I have to do too much mental jumps through hoops to make them work. As I said, there are some honest to goodness free 3D design software, and they're all good. There's nothing really wrong with them, with well, one exception. SketchUp, and this is the one I use. This is a line-based system that runs on your desktop. There is a version called Make 2017, and this is the last free version they ever made. It is still available. You can download it at that link that you see there. The link will also be in the handout that I've got. Later versions of this are limited in free time trial versions. So you might like them and you might want to use them. I'm not saying don't use them. I'm just saying you don't have to. I've been able to do everything I need with the free version, the 2017 version. There is another version out there called My SketchUp. Might be called App SketchUp as well. This is browser based and it is free and it is okay for learning, but there are so many missing features that I have found between it and the real SketchUp. So I don't recommend using it. If it works for you, great, but for me, it did not. Tinkercad is one of the shape-based versions. It runs in your browser. It is free, and I've seen some decent work out of it. I've heard people say that, again, you can't do real work in this, but I've seen decent work in it. I believe the designs are by default stored on AutoCAD servers, and I think you can store them elsewhere if you want. I'm not certain on that one. It's been a long time since I've tried it. A couple of NMRAx presentations back, I think January, may have been February, we had a Blender presentation, how to use it. This is free and open source. One nice thing about Blender is it runs on Macs, it runs on Windows, and it runs on Linux boxes. SketchUp, by the way, will run on Windows and Macs. This seems like a perfectly fine system, and if you're comfortable with CAD in general already, this might be a good place to start. I personally would, if you're not familiar with it, I would suggest SketchUp or Tinkercad. Fusion 360 is touted a lot by a lot of people. They say this is the absolute best, and perhaps it is. I've never tried it, so I don't have much experience with it. It does cost unless you declare yourself a hobbyist, and you have to annually renew that. Now, one interesting thing about Fusion 360 is it does support printed circuit board design. So if you need to do your own circuit boards, this might be the way to go. That way you learn one thing and get two for the price of one. I'm not recommending or endorsing any of these. I'm simply suggesting, and your Google search may easily find something you like. All right, so when you're doing your design, I've got some suggestions. Uh, they are suggestions that I have developed using Shapeways. They are suggestions I have developed using SketchUp. The tool or the service you use maybe lead you down different paths, but as a start, I would offer these. Try to draw full size. Don't draw at scale. Don't do the mental gymnastics to rescale all of the measurements that you've taken off of the passenger car that you've been measuring down into hundredths and 10,000ths of an inch. Uh, you will get rounding error creeping in. You will make mistakes. So do it at full size and then let the computer reduce the design to your desired scale. Further, if you design it this way, you can then design it, reduce it to multiple scales. You can build one in N scale, you can build one in Z, you can build one in HO. You get the idea. When you're doing your design, there's often a lot of extra lines that you put in. So clean up your design and find and repair errors frequently and often. The more often you do this, the less problems you will run into. Now, if you're using SketchUp, there are two extensions, plugins that you will want to use, Solid Inspector and Cleanup. These are invaluable. I was not able to get very far without using these. Because this is CAD, you can use components. You take repetitive elements like doors, windows, and make one and copy it elsewhere, everywhere you need. And the key thing here, the nice thing, is you can make a change to one and it changes all of them. If you've put in two pane windows and you now want four pane, all 17 that you've added to your design will suddenly get four panes when you add it to the one. Now, if you know that you're going to be using multiple printers, say Shapeways, which has multiple capabilities, try to split your design into separate parts. For example, this is one where this is that shanty that I was talking about earlier. I had the body of the shanty split out so that it could be printed with their low resolution printers. They're a lot cheaper to do that. If you were to try and print everything at this high resolution needed for the windows and doors and gutters and downspouts, it would be a very expensive print to make. But by splitting this out, I'm able to do the big part at a low cost and save my money to use on the detailed parts. The other thing about printing is volume is your enemy. Do not make solid boxes. Don't fill up your structures, for example, because you're going to pay for every square millimeter of material that you put in there. So make them hollow like you see through here, or consider flattening them into kits, just flat walls that you then will assemble later. We all know computers will crash 30 seconds before you're ready to close your design. So save frequently and often, and especially start saving right before you do a major change. If you're going to do a redesign or adding something new and complex, save right before that and save right after it when you're done. That way you can go back and you haven't lost a lot of work if you get a crash. And when you save them, save them in separate directories. Don't dump everything into a single directory. Use a standard naming convention. Use scale and repetitions. If you've designed a single chimney, call it chimney, and then call it N scale chimney, and then call it N scale chimney times 6. And you've got it all together and easily identified what's what. All right, you've done your design. You've got it working. It's looking really shiny. What do you do next? You got to go find a printing service. Now, Shapeways is the 800-pound gorilla in this entire environment. I have found that they have among the best prices and reasonable turn times. I've got no real complaints with them. Other than, did I mention shipping and handling is kind of expensive? Uh, the other advantage that they have is they have a huge choice in materials. They have plastics with different properties, different colors, different detail levels. They can print in metals. If you want a solid gold crossing shanty, you can have them make it for you. I think it costs right around $1,400 at this point for gold plated. You can have them print in wax, so you can make lost wax castings. You can actually have them print in colored sandstone. So yes, you really can have them print your scenery for you. But Shapeways isn't the only one. If you go looking online with searching for 3D printing service, you will get a lot. Um, Make XYZ, for example, is one that I'm hearing a lot about lately. I've never tried them. Sculptio is one I've looked at in the past. I've never used them because I always found them more expensive than Shapeways, but maybe your particular design fits better with their service. Treatstock is one I have used for printing from uh, Thingiverse files that I've downloaded, and I'm very satisfied with their turn time, their prices. They're good. When you're out there looking, you will find a lot, as I said, and some will work with hobbyists and some won't. Just move on. The other thing is lurking around 3D Facebook groups. I have found another company out of Canada that I'm thinking I'll probably go try out for my next print because they were quoting me much lower prices than Shapeways. So now you don't have to go to the big services. There are other options that you might want to try. Your school, one of our local community college campuses here in the Portland, Oregon area, has printers that people can use. You can look at libraries. Our local city library has one that you can use. Your employer may have a printer that you can use. Mine has at least 4, and we're not allowed to use them, unfortunately. Um, my kid's high school has one. Unfortunately, you got to be a high school student, and I'm not there. So if you're going to search this way, search for Makerspace, and you can see I typed in Portland Makerspace and quickly came up with a couple of options. Again, lurk around in the 3D Facebook groups for other leads. Finally, make friends. My superintendent has a printer, and I have more printing design, or I have more design skills than he has. So I'm going to probably be trading some of my designs for things he wants to print some of the things I want. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. All right. So you've done a lot of designs, you've sent them off to Shapeways or wherever, and you're getting tired of the turn time. You're getting tired of having to pay that arm and a leg and shipping costs. So it's now time to consider your own printer. You do need the printer, obviously. You will need additional software. You probably need additional hardware, and you will need extra space. It doesn't magically just appear and disappear when you need it. The interesting thing is you don't have to have any design skills to do it this way. You can download the design straight from Yegi. Your prints are limited by your skill and your patience. You will have to learn how to tweak this printer. Every time you create a new design, you will have to tweak it to make sure it works right on your printer. You are also limited by the attributes of your printer. We'll talk about that in a bit. But the nice thing there is you can always buy another printer. Now, of course, at this point, your prints are free, right? No. You've got the high upfront cost for the printer. You've got the printer maintenance costs. You will have to replace pieces and parts and make improvements to it. You will have to buy material for it. It's definitely not free prints. It will be cheaper than doing it through the mail with Shapeways or whatever. The other thing is you can turn around and make money. If you have good designs and you know people who want to buy them, start printing them. You'll sell them. Uh, and I do want to say that these test prints do cost money. As I said, with the testing that you have to do to tweak it in place, that's going to burn up your resin or your filament, and you're not going to get anything useful except material for your scrapyard. Quick turn time. Uh, Shapeways can have up to 6 weeks turn time, but you could easily get a printout in 6 hours. Uh, It's not real fast, though, in some senses. I know of a gentleman who printed a 7-foot bridge, and it took a full week to get all the pieces out of there. But it is faster than going through mail order. Essentially, there's two types of filament printers. There's the extrusion, excuse me, I'm sorry. There's two types of 3D printers. There's the extrusion or filament printers. That's like the concrete squirting machines that we saw early on. And there's the resin or ultraviolet light printers. There are a lot of other kinds of printers that you might find in your work, but they're large. They don't fit on your desktop. They won't fit on your workbench, and they are very expensive. If you have access to them, go ahead. They're great to use, but they're not something that most of us will have access to. The two types are create prints very differently. The extrusion has a build plate that moves back and forth, and then this nozzle that has material being squirted through it, that moves left and right on this support beam. So between the two, you can reach anywhere on this build plate and you build a layer. It then, the nozzle is moved up a slight amount and it again puts on another layer, moves up higher, next layer, and so on and so forth. The resin printer, on the other hand, starts with a vat of liquid resin. This build plate is put in all the way to the bottom. There is a clear screen there, and underneath is an ultraviolet screen. Excuse me, there's a clear window. There's an ultraviolet screen underneath that window that flashes the layer design through the window and cures a very thin layer of the resin on the build plate. The build plate is lifted very slightly. It flashes another layer, and so on and so forth. This keeps pulling out until your model is complete. So I hear you asking, what's the best 3D printer? And as I said before, it depends. It depends on the level of detail you want. It depends on how much you want to spend, how much you want to create, how much you're going to use it, how much space you have, a whole bunch of things. In other words, there is no best. There's no best of, is resin better than extrusion? No. Is there a best extrusion printer? No. Is there a best resin printer? No. But take your time, determine your needs, and do your research to make sure that you know what closely matches your needs. Now, as I said, they have different capabilities. Extrusion printers, larger things this way. They have, some of them at least, have multiple print heads, and they can print multiple things at the same time. They are relatively faster than resin printers. They are relatively cheaper than resin printers, and the material they use is relatively cheaper. They do require post-processing to remove the visible layer lines. The odors, and some of those odors are toxic. Resin printers, on the other hand, will do a finer detail, but they have a smaller build volume. They only do a single type of material at a time, and they're relatively slower. The printer is relatively more expensive than extrusion printers, and it requires more post-processing steps to complete the cure. It doesn't come out of the printer completely cured. There, again, is a wide range of materials with a whole bunch of different properties. These properties can be food grade, for example. These properties can be medical grade. The material is sensitive to UV light, and unfortunately, it does really require personal protective equipment, such as nitrile gloves, masks, respirators. So be very careful with it. And the liquid resin that is hazardous waste, don't pour it down your drain. Let it sit out in the sun and cure if you've got too much, you've got excess you want to get rid of, but don't pour it down your drain, please. Um, these are two 3D printers. That's all I'm going to say. Every month, every 6 months, you will find that someone else is coming out with a better one. I am not recommending these. I am not endorsing these. I'm simply saying it's a couple places you can start. If you're willing to research the rivet locations on a Pennsylvania gondola, why not research the right printer for you? Okay, that's pretty much it. The question now is, should you start 3D printing? Guess what? It depends. Yeah, you should. If you want parts that are not available elsewhere, if you want a one-of-a-kind model, if you want a locomotive that no one else will ever produce, it's a good place to go. If you want a part that can't be made any other way than 3D printing, it's the only way to go, obviously. If you want to lavish your design skills on a mold master, do it once, have it printed, and then start using it for casting, another great way to go. You can create products to sell on demand. As I said, in the last 3 years, I have made almost $10 selling items on Shapeways. If you like to draw scale drawings of your structures or your cars before you build them, why bother building them? Create the drawings and then just print them. And one that doesn't get a lot of attention, but is a really big deal in my mind. If you have shaking hands or poor eyesight, 3D printing is much easier to do than an X-Acto knife at scale. On the other hand, if you can do it any other way, please do it some other way. It's not cheap. It is not a production line. If you're not willing to learn and spend the time to learn how to use your tools, learn how to use the printer, you learn how to use the application, you're going to be wasting your time. You're going to be wasting your money. Some people may find that the odor is objectionable. And as I've mentioned, it is another hobby. It will take a lot of your time. A question that I'm often asked is 3D printing scratch building? Replace the words on this slide with yes, it is scratch building. Any part that you've designed yourself is considered scratch built, regardless of whose printer or laser cutter or paper cutter is used. It's scratch built. Now, if you take a design off of Thingiverse and print it on your printer, that's a commercial part. A 3D printer is no more than a fancy hobby knife. It's just a tool, and it's up to you how you are going to make that tool work. So, as far as the contests in the NMRA and the AP program are concerned, this is a settled call. It is parts made this way are scratch built. To get started, I would recommend doing it the same way that we went through this presentation. Start looking at Shapeways and Yagi. Find things you like, print them. And if you find everything you need there, you're golden. You don't need to go any farther. But if you find you're still missing something, there's something you want to do, go ahead and start doing your own designs. Get involved with Facebook groups, search YouTube, and pick a design tool. Start trying out designs and have those printed at Shapeways or wherever you want to go. I'm a Shapeways guy. That's just all there is to it. Once you find that you're doing a lot of these, if every week you need some more prints, it's time to get your own printer. But you've got to make sure that you've got the money, the space, and the willingness to maintain it, and a desire to start a new hobby. In summary, 3D printing is real. It's a viable option for some uses, not every use. It can be done at home, or you can do it through suppliers. You don't need a printer to do 3D printing. You just need the ability to do 3D design in this case. It's just another skill that you can use. And to wrap up, this is what a few days ago on a pre-depression modeling group on Facebook. There's nobody that's going to make this model. And I have zero interest in laying out the work on uh, evergreen siding. It's just not interesting to me. But drawing it up, that's fun. So what you see there on the right is my work in progress. And that's it. Feel free to email me with questions. And Lloyd, are there any questions from the audience?
Well, thank you, Richard. Yes, there's a few questions. And personally, I really like your presentation because most people, when they go into 3D printing, they forget that, yeah, the printer is $300 or $400, but they forget that you got to spend another $300-400 on material, gloves, resin, or whatever. That's why it's kind of eye-opening. So yeah, I've got a question here. If I'm going to go all the way to do all that, why not jump right in? The cost of a 3D party printer will very quickly add up to a printer of my own.
Very true. If you know you're going to do that much printing and you know you like doing that much work, you like doing that much printing, yeah, go for it. But if you don't know much about 3D printing, I wouldn't start that way. I would start looking to see what's available and just buy the designs or do like I've done. I get the designs I want. I don't need to print something every week. I don't need to print something every day. So it depends on what's right for you.
Right. Another question was, ever used a phone or a tablet to design with?
Phone or Cowlet design?
Tablet, like if you're
Oh,
using
phone. Oh,
tablet.
I'm sorry. Sorry, speaker wax in here. You might be able to do it on a tablet. I don't know. I don't know if some of the applications will work there. The browser-based applications should work there, but I've never used them. I tend to go to the desktop applications. That's just my interest. Phone, could you do it theoretically? Would you want to do it? Yeah.
It depends on the age and your
Yeah.
eyesight.
Yeah. If you have to wear a optivisor to do the work on your phone, it probably isn't worth it.
Do you need to add or design the support needed to print the parts?
Uh, for the Okay, first of all, I've not done printing on my own. I'm going off of what I've learned from the Facebook groups. Generally, with resin printers, yes. Generally, with extrusion printers, no. There are applications that come with the resin printers that do design those supports. Whether or not they're the right design That's part of the tweaking that you have to do every time you create a new design, is figuring out how to do those supports.
Mhm. Um, I know we always, I mean, most people, we don't get it the first time when we print something. So what about if you need to test print? Wouldn't it end up costing a lot with Shapeways? Um, Especially shipping going from US to Canada was ridiculous. So because I don't think anybody could get it the first time.
I spend a lot of time designing. I keep working at it until I like it, until it's right for me. You see there on, or you saw on the designs were there, they're fairly detailed. I put in every possible detail I can. So from a standpoint of the design, no, I can print it once. It's up to Shapeways to print it right, and it's their problem at that point to get that print what I sent them. They do have they do have tests that they run to say, nope, I can't print this period. Can someone with their own printer print the same thing? Probably, but they put a lot of time and effort into tweaking it. But Shapeways has good standards that you can use, and no, I print it and it's good. That shanty that I did the very first, I didn't like it because, oh, I learned a lot more in my design skill and I've improved since then. But first time prints have been successful for me.
Okay. Another question, what is the best glue to use on PLA printed parts to styrene?
It depends. um, I have found the most of my designs are one piece so far, so I haven't done a lot of gluing. And I have found when I did need to glue, super glue works fine. Uh, I don't know enough there yet.
Mhm. Uh, I think that's it for the questions. Oh, hold on. Oops. Just want to make sure that I didn't forget any. Hmm, okay, what drawing programs do you use? So we've done that. Okay, oh, here's another one. My slicer often crashes on my PC when I try to reopen a supported and sliced file that is bigger than 10 megabytes. Do you recommend having a dedicated graphic card when using slicer? And then what about when I start using Fusion 360 later? A graphic card can be more expensive than the printer.
uh, with all due respect, that's completely out of my experience level. I've not done any printing like that. I'm hoping that someone else further down in the comments can answer that question for them. I don't know.
I've got one. I always say to my clients, time is money. So when you're designing something, and it's going to take you, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, while you could be working on your layout, then you've got the printer costs, then you've got all the equipment costs. At the end of the line, is it really worth it to buy something if you're just going to do a few parts here and there?
Um, Buying a printer, if you're doing a few parts, really isn't because you're doing, as you said, there's a high setup cost there. There's a high maintenance cost. If you're going to be doing a lot of parts that you're regularly doing, then you're finding all the designs you need on Yegi. Yeah, it might be worth it. I personally have not found it worth it to have a printer. I don't print enough. Don't have enough need.
Mhm.
The design is another question, though. It does take 2 to 3 weeks to get a design. What you saw, that last picture I had there was around a week and a half's worth of work. I don't know if you noticed the Sears kit build house that was in there further. That was 7 weeks of design work to get to that level. I can't justify that for a custom job for someone else, but it was fun for me. If I was doing this as a custom designer, I would not be putting that much detail in. I wouldn't be putting that much level in unless I was charging them a huge amount.
Right. We've reached the time that allotted.
Okay.
So I would like to thank you, Richard. It was a great presentation.
Thank
And
you.
so I'm gonna pass it on to Speed.
Thank you all very much.
Hey everyone, it's Gordy again. Um, so apparently we started a tradition when I've normally been in bed in the last two NMRAXs to have a halftime show, and so we didn't want to disappoint. um, Martin set the agenda for the halftime show, but Martin, I've just phoned him in Australia. It's 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning. I've just got him out of bed, so I asked him to get a shirt on. So he's just getting dressed, and he'll be with us. But some of the crew are here, and Martin set the topic for today's little chat: the unscripted, unprompted interlude, I guess. And that was to look at things that are on your layout, or things that you've done in your layout in the last few months. From the NMRAx crew, which some has done more than others because, well, this gets in the way of a lot of stuff. So anyway, so I've got with us, Speed is in his Helix with his camera off. We've got Jordan Kramer with his camera off, but there's Jordan. Jordan's work is behind him. Brad is here as well in the background, but we thought we'd go, and I'll go first. It's always the job of the leader of the group to go first, I guess. So I'll go first and show me work. So for those that may or may not be familiar, I bet there's like 0 people watching this on YouTube at the minute, but hopefully you stayed with us. As I end up taking an in-breath and swallowing a lot of coffee mouth. Anyway, so for those that don't know, I have my own blog. You can go and see what Gordy's up to on gordy.uk. And I apologise. Normally there's a blog post every day, but the last couple of days I've been pretty sick with some dental issues, so I haven't got very much done. So there's not been a post for a couple of days, but that will get back on track next week. Managed to get a few bits done today. So for those that don't know, I'm model southeastern Wisconsin, ex-Wisconsin Central, now Canadian National main line, up from Chicago, through Fond du Lac, up towards Green Bay and the Twin Cities and Canada. So, and I model it in January. So, joke of the day has been that we've been adding snowmen to our layout, thanks to our sponsor and NMRA partner Mini Prints for doing these and sending these over from Canada. So yeah, we've made N-scale snowmen. I know Woodland Scenics do them, but these are just cooler. And you can just about see in this picture here, our little snowman at the side of the switch stand. And for the Scale Trains fans, yes, it's another Gevo, Jordan.
I know.
In N-scale. And yeah, that's pretty cool. You can blow these up if you go to the blog. But yeah, we've been adding some snow, lots and lots of snow scenery. I explained my whole process for this in the various blog posts. If you go to the blog and click on Waukesha Subdivision in N-scale, you'll see it. Are we all right, Speed? I got you. We're up. And yep, so here you can kind of see the process going on. So modeling snow is not as easy as you would think. In fact, it's difficult, but it's pretty difficult to do. It's quite a long and tedious process of scraping snow out of flangeways and stuff. But this is what it looks like when it's snowed. That's about 17 feet of layout there. It's 1 feet wide. It's all N scale. Track is Pico Code 55. What else you'd want to know? There's some real snow here in Orkney. We don't get a lot of it. We're too close to the sea. But you can kind of see that when the ground is, the reason I took this photograph is that's my flat driveway, nice even pattern of snow. That was before anybody walks on it in the morning. And then where there's kind of rise in the ground or where there's grass, the grass comes through the snow, but the snow still coats the ground, apart from where there's a steep undulation. So we have some areas of the layout where we've modeled that, where the snow is kind of broken away and gravity's taking effect. So you can see here we were doing some static grass onto the snow. Static grass is the last thing you put on, and you don't snow over the top of static grass because the grass fibers will just go flat. So yeah, we've done that, dug out the switches, putting in switch stands, all the little details that we need. These are from Osborne's in Canada. Yeah, that's N scale. It's tiny. And if we just scroll down, you can see we've added all kinds of trees and all that kind of stuff. But there was not any bench work or anything in there on Christmas Day, so this has all happened since Christmas. You see, you have to scrape all this snow out the flangeways, and then we'll go in and put some ballast into there just to finish this off. And all these big clumps of snow were removed with the hoover. But this is a tedious bit. The most tedious bit of my life at the moment is getting a dental pick and scratching the snow off the rails, because snow doesn't stick well to rails. Well, if you want to derail absolutely every piece of rolling stock on your layout in N scale, then yeah, pack it in with snow, because that's that. Hoover, a new rock, lots and lots of scenic spray, gaudy for scale. So yeah, that's where we're at. That's me. It's snowing. Check out my blog, gaudy.uk. Also the gaudy.uk store if you want to support the blog. Go get yourself a pretty t-shirt. We do all kinds of colours. We even recently added pink to our range of colours. So you can get pretty much anything you want. And that'll be me. Who wants to go next?
Well, I can go next.
Is there any questions? No questions? Anyone see any? Perfect.
We have 3 viewers.
Cool.
It's probably,
that it?
it's
Is
probably
everyone
just us.
Is it
Do
just
we-
us?
Do we want to play the game of ask me what photo I have, and we'll see if I have a picture of it?
Why do we only have 3 viewers?
Because Jordan
it's
stopped
bad.
looking.
That's exactly what it is. I've stopped looking.
Well, we've got 47 people out there. We appreciate all 47 of you.
Yes.
How did you get your yellow snow?
How did I don't actually know how we got yellow snow. It was one day I came along and we had yellow snow. There is, if you go to precisionsnowandice.com, they make snow material, and that's the snow material I've used for wargaming, and they actually do dyes, like leather dye, that you can drop into your snow to dye it various colors of blood, mud, fuel, and yellow. But I promise I didn't put anything in there to make it go yellow. I still haven't worked out why. But yeah, there is a little patch of yellow snow as a little N scale figure that's wandered along and had a little pee. But for a limited time only, to celebrate the fact we have yellow snow, you can get a mug from the Gaudy store, which Jordan should have one somewhere to show.
It's
Hopefully.
downstairs in the
It's
wash.
downstairs? That's
In the
terrible.
washer.
In the
Yeah.
wash, but Jordan does have one. Andy Ambrose has one as well. Maybe he'll show it a bit later if he comes on. He may show you Gaudy. There we go. There's the Gaudy.uk. It says beware of yellow snow on one side, and on the other, Gaudy.uk. So for a limited time only, you can get your beware of yellow snow mug from the Gaudy.uk store. All right, cool. So Jordan, what have you been up to?
Basically been working on this layout, which is...
We've lost your camera though.
I know you have.
Don't click
Oh,
that button.
okay, we go into a different camera.
Yes.
Oh, look
So-
at that.
This is Cincinnati. This is part of what's going to become the bigger layout. And this is Cincinnati 1905, designed by Gordy, by the way. But basically, it's a small switching layout to get me started on my layout and have something to run in the meantime. But for the most part, that's it. And then we got the UK flag that.
Yeah, what's with the
Gordy
flag?
sent.
So your dirt. Yeah, Gordy did send the flag. So
Yes.
the dirt, that's real Ohioan dirt. Is that
Yes.
the correct color for? So you took real dirt from the yard.
Actually, I took it from down in Cincinnati at a job site I was working at one day.
Nice, very good, cool. And the trestle. Could you show everyone your trestle? This is
Yes,
one of the first, I believe, one of the first craftsman structures you've cobbled out.
I have, and this is the one that's being modified and extended. I'm going to extend it 2 car lengths so I can get
Full
4.
layout, which if you go to gaudy.uk, it is true that you can see the track plan for this layout and the future track plan for it because it's all modular. But there was actually two coal trestles next to each other in Cincinnati in 1905.
Yes.
So that's what you've modeled, the two
Cool.
two different companies. That's cool.
And also been arranging photos that I've taken recently.
So does this mean we're going to get another Mr. Kramer? Does this mean we're going to get another Kramer clinic?
Yes, we're going to have one in May for freight cars, and it's going to be Freight Cars Part 2. And then hopefully in June we can get one on spring rail fanning.
Part 3.
Part 3.
Well, we got to do something variety.
So what are we going to see in May? What's the? Give us the gist of this.
Well, let me show you what we have so far, because as the guys know, I have a ton of photos. These are all the photos that I have compiled so far for May,
Wow.
including locomotives.
So
if we need to do one.
is there a theme? Like we've had themes
Um,
before.
I'm thinking that it'll probably be boxcars. We'll continue on with boxcars because it's either going to be boxcars or hopper cars. I'm not sure just what I'm going to do yet.
So it's 50 Shades of Boxcars.
Yes.
Awesome. There you go. We've got a working title, everyone. This is how things happen in NMRAx. This is how it rolls. That's cool. Oh, we have a visitor. Oh, wow, look at that, live from the Gold Coast with a shirt on. Thank you.
Yep. Oh, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Is that what it looks like right now, or is it still raining?
No. It kind of looks like this.
Wow.
Yes, unfortunately, that means I've got to go out and mow the lawns in the heat later on.
Superb. That's punishment for being late. So, we've done what you asked. We've reviewed the Gordy.uk blog and looked at what I've been up to on my layout, which is you're doing well with that picture because it's the complete opposite of the of the snow scenes on my layout. Jordan's just shown everyone what progress he's made with his switching layout and showed everyone his trestle, and we also give everyone a bit of a sneak peek for the next clinic from Jordan on 50 Shades of Boxcars. So where do we go from here, Martin? This is your show that you're 70 minutes late for.
Oh, come on. Come on. Hey, by the way, when I had a little look at my schedule, I had it down for 9 o'clock because that's what it was last month.
Indeed.
Daylight savings, mate. You forgot about that.
But it hasn't changed here.
But it
Yeah,
changed
but it
here.
never changes there. It's It's all relative to UTC, Marty. You've got to read the UTC column and work it out.
Changed, and I've got to get up an hour earlier.
Do you want me to show you the video? Do I have to get the time zone why the world is round video out for you?
Dear. Well, we had an exciting weekend last weekend. We went to a train show.
Wow.
Where they
with masks or
no
masks?
masks, no mask-free train show. But you had to sign up. There was a bit of a sign-up process to go through for contact tracing, and they allowed 500 people in the hall. So they had to have people there counting them going in the rooms, in the various rooms where the show was, and they had to have someone clean the handrails down every hour. So, but apart from that, it was just like a normal train show like we had 2 years ago, which was most enjoying.
Pretty cool. And you showed us some live video from it.
Yeah.
I could if I took some.
Oh, did you take any pictures?
There are a couple floating around the web, but I didn't personally.
Do you have any evidence that this actually took place at all?
Yes, they've got a website, the Bundaberg Model Train Club, on Facebook.
There we go, the Bundaberg. Cool.
I'm glad you added that in, Gordy, because Jordan Speed actually sat in a bit of a walk around last weekend with Martin, but now I see how he uses his green screen. I wouldn't put it past him that he was just sitting in his train shed in 16-degree temperatures.
Yeah.
Yeah. A new piece of uniform for these kind of events. I don't know if you've still got it with you.
I found something, which made me blend into the population.
Okay, we're all waiting for this.
I'll just go inside and get it and come out the balcony here. It's not really the weather to be wearing something, but
Well, you need to protect yourself from the sun. Look
there
at
you go.
that. That's great. And do all those enamel badges not weigh you down a bit?
They do if I go in the surf.
Did you add the badges or did it come with it?
No, I added the badges, some of the badges. It came with some badges. But yes, yeah. It hasn't been out in a while, so. But the train show hat came out last weekend, and we had the layout. We were running. I was amazed our layout actually ran because all the club members had the two corners on the wrong ends, and 3 of the modules ran the wrong way. But they managed to connect them, and they managed to work. So
That
yeah,
sounds
it
like
was a good
Scott
weekend.
Mo. Sounds like Scott Mo, that.
It does, but it would trouble was it was 5.5 hours drive from here to get to the show.
Only 5.5 hours.
Yeah, it was only a short one up the road.
That's your local show, right?
Yeah. It's 5.5 hours to get to the mailbox.
Talk about dedication.
Yeah.
So
And,
yeah,
and Brad didn't join you though. He felt it was a bit too far.
Yeah, I couldn't drive the 7 hours.
Well, I saw that it was on the coast, so you could have gone by boat.
What
If I could
boat?
travel by boat, I wouldn't be going to Bundaberg, that's for sure.
The man of Rome we've had, Brad could use his boat to go to work.
Yeah, just about.
Speaking of work, Brad, what have you been working on your layout?
Well, I'd just like to thank you guys for, while I'm in bed asleep, coming up with these crazy ideas of what I've got to do and not do in halftime shows. Honestly, not much. Like Gordy said, this stuff takes up a fair bit of time, editing videos and whatnot. But I have actually just. So I've been working on some stuff for me 3D printing. So that's a log car. I know you guys here have all seen this over the last 4 weeks or so. Pretty much ready to print at this stage. So that's been consuming my nights in the shed, talking with you lot. Other than that,
Fantastic.
4 weeks. It haven't any grown any logs yet.
no. Trees take a long time to grow.
So if
We've had
anybody
too
wants
much
to,
water.
if anybody wanted to know why no edited videos have been added to YouTube in 2 months, this is why. This is what this is all about.
Yeah, sidetracked.
This is the excuses show. We have actually got some modelling done, and it's impacted significantly on output. But we apologise.
Correct.
But I see you've
And
got
other
the
than that,
you've got the fire extinguisher there behind you, Brad.
Yeah, I'm actually prepared for some clinics coming up after this break.
Okay, and
Safety first.
Safety first. Is this Mr. Marks we're worried about?
Yeah, it could be. I even see there's a set of gloves sitting back there. Just don't want to get me fingers dirty.
You don't want to set the layout on fire.
Not
Where's
yet.
So you've got your steel toe caps on. Check.
Check.
Steely's on. Yeah, Australian steel toe caps are on.
Yep, work boots
So
there.
we've got your hard hat on. Just can't see it, but it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got his Australian mullet. That's his hard hat, and then he's got his gloves. You got your fire extinguisher.
Gloves, yep. See, I'm all set. I took me
Excellent.
notes last clinic, see?
All right. What about your
Prepared.
mask? You don't want any of those nasty fumes getting up there.
No, I've got ventilation down here off to the side.
Oh, ventilated.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep, well
Excellent.
ventilated.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm on
Cool.
to it. I'd be more
Excellent.
concerned about speed up there in the helix, so I think he should be the one wearing a mask and
I'm
stuff
at the
like
bottom. I'm at the bottom.
that. Oh, that's right. Fumes rise, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Escape hatch.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I
me and
just
Speed actually have been working the last couple of weeks on some MQ train stuff, haven't we, Speed, together?
Yeah.
Speed's
So-
been enlightening me, educating me.
So can I share?
You can.
Yeah. Let's go.
So, Chrome tab. Doo-doo-doo. So we've been releasing the binary file to do the servos, all these things that's running my railroad here over Wi-Fi. And in the last 2 weeks, we also got the, maybe I need to stop sharing. Got the output board, so, 32 inputs or 32 outputs or a combination thereof. And if this was plugged in, with a click of a button, I can turn this LED on. Isn't that magic? How many people can click a button and LED turns on? Wow.
I've got
Yes.
one question, Speed. I've
Yes,
got
Corey.
one question.
Yes.
Speed, how come yours looks so much neater than mine? Because this is what you've gave me.
Things happen in shipping.
Oh, that's the problem.
It's what. See, it doesn't work well when turned upside down. I think that's what Speed's trying to tell you, right? Is that's what it looks like upside down. Okay.
Oh, I should have turned the instructions upside down. That's what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah,
I knew I
yeah.
went wrong somewhere.
That's where it all went wrong, I think.
Well, I've managed to find some photos on the Facebook page of the show last weekend.
Fantastic.
Let's see if I can get this to work. Let's see if I can get this to work.
Put filter on.
The wonders of modern technology.
There's some photos here maybe you don't want to share. Just make sure these are all kosher.
Yep, yeah, they are.
Okay.
So this was our club layout, our modular layout, which is all based on HO T-Track. So for all the T-Track fans that are out there, we actually do T-Track HO. And I actually had the RC Porsche running up and down this road and weaving in and out of all the traffic. And I only managed to wipe out or hit 2 cars by going out of control. And funnily enough, they were both Volvos. So it seems like
no
the
damage.
have got magnetic attraction to Volvos in running them off the road. So.
And so, what's the radius there on HOT track?
I think the outside one is 29 inches. And so it's fairly tight. You can't get much more than a 50-foot car around the outside track. One of our crazy club members has got one of those Chernobyl cranes, and every time he runs it, he insists on putting it on the inside track so that the other people will have to stop when he hits the corners, because his overhang goes virtually across both tracks.
So what's the inside like? 24-inch radius?
Yeah, it's really tight.
Wow.
But it's nice and transportable. It all fits in the back of a station wagon. So, but there are a couple of my modules on there with animations of a car accident. So all the lights are flashing. They're all done by Arduinos. But all of these buildings here are all scratch built. They're all built out of cardboard boxes.
So
shirt boxes
so
and.
Did you cause this accident?
Yeah, I built it. I built the accident.
Okay, so it wasn't the RC Porsche that caused it?
No. That was a deliberate stage scene. Yeah, it wasn't a result of me driving remote control cars around the layout. So.
Okay.
But you were tempted.
Checking.
A couple of the
whoa,
other layers.
Who was that? Whoa, go back. Is that actually
one?
somebody's? No, the previous one. Look at
That's
that.
one of the traders. That's M&K models.
Cool.
And look at the Thomas stuff that they have for sale on the end of the table.
I know. Look at that. Wow.
And he's a big Hornby supplier. So down the other end is all the Hornby stuff.
Awesome.
So yep, there's a typical Australian retailer. That's Mal from Harvey Bay at M&K Models. Mal and Karen.
Cool stuff.
So
That was
whose
on
layout
the
is
Cooperoo
this?
layout. So this is one of the layouts of a scene in Brisbane, in Cooperoo. This was a new one that's been built by a couple of people I know, John, the two father and son team, John and John Love. So it's 12 mil Queensland. It's called Walloon, and everything is scratch built.
Sweet.
All off photos. There's a cane railway. It's actually sponsored by Bundaberg Sugar. So they were there. Another shot of the station at Walloon.
I saw on Google Earth that that Bundaberg Sugar actually goes right into the rum distillery.
Yep.
The tracks run right into the rum distillery.
That's right. That's their major client.
Cool.
And of
What
course
gauge is that?
It's 3-foot gauge, I believe.
Oh, there we go. That's nice.
That's cool.
So these are the live steamers that were out the front, and the boat club. All the RC models were represented. This was really neat. If you like little steam engines, little steam tractors, they had these running around outside, all fired up, which was quite neat.
Did you have a ride?
No, I didn't.
You could have had a race with the RC car.
And that's the layout. As you can see, our layout's just here on the right. And another shot of the layout.
Looks empty. You snuck in the middle of the night?
And this was before they opened.
Oh.
This was before opening, yeah.
That's just social distancing in Australia.
It is.
I noticed, Martin, there was no as he goes, there's no photos of Martin in his usual attire and usual positioning. Martin is usually fast asleep on a Sunday and Saturday mornings for the first 2 hours of a show, and I noticed there's none of those photos floating around.
Well, it's very hard for me to take a photo of myself asleep when I'm asleep. So you're going to have to rely on other people to put those up online. I know one person who's probably got a shot or two, but you know.
We'll discuss it with her on Wednesday. All right, well that's cool. So that's a little bit of a roundup. So we should probably say that we are going to put some more edited videos out, aren't we, Marty?
We are. We don't have another train show for another month, and that's the Brisbane one. Will be our next big one. And if I stop actually doing work on the layout, I'll get some more videos edited and up there.
Yeah, because we've got some volunteers that are helping with stuff. So we always need more people to help with production. You don't have to go on camera. There's lots of roles with NMRAx in the background that people don't see. And if we're ever going to expand what we do, we need more folk to come and get involved and volunteer and give some time. And all the time that you give to the NMRA can be used for your achievement program and stuff like that. So, which is the route to Master Model Railroader, which a lot of us are working towards. So, come and give it a go. I think I've got one certificate left. I think Speed's got one or two. Is it one? Two? I've got one. I need to finish that snow scene. I need to get it round that corner. Now I can submit mine. Brad, he's got some to work on, but he's got some good stuff there. And Marty's got some, and he's got more to do.
Yeah, I've got 3, I think, here.
Jordan's busy there working towards his golden spike with his great modules. She'll probably get some other stuff. You've built some freight cars and all sorts there, haven't you? So
yeah,
all having a good go at different things. So that's cool. I think it's all your modeling's coming on brilliantly, Jordan, and I think it's all down to English breakfast tea.
Sure, we'll say that.
Oh yeah.
I think he needs a teapot to just lift his game a little bit.
Yep.
I have supplied both an electric kettle and a matching mug.
So showing
I'm talking
matching
about
Lego pieces.
A proper teapot, cozy and all.
Show and tell during the next show.
You might see it in the future, guys.
Yeah, it might make an appearance.
But I think it's great because just right here now, we've connecting all the world just in our halftime show. We've got me and Ortney, we've got Speed and Jordan in the US, and we've got Brad and Marty in Australia. And what's worth saying is that Jordan's had to take a few weeks off work because of a workplace incident or accident. He's hurt himself, but he's on the mend. But you've been able to join some of the Aussie chats and meetings in the mornings, haven't you? And things, and you know, I think we're better connected now than we ever have been, and it's good. It's reflected in people's knowledge, skills, and models. Mark Stafford and Andy Ambrose do say we want to see this kettle, so you may need to just flash up the kettle, buddy. The fans demand
the
it.
kettle is downstairs. I'm sorry.
Oh, excuses.
Next time I will make sure it is promptly displayed over there.
We will make sure that the kettle is prominently displayed next time. Okay.
What
we'll
he needs now is a doily and a nice plate to put his biscuits on.
Ooh,
good
ideas.
Martin,
all great ideas. All great ideas, Martin.
Yeah.
To continue the
ongoing.
to continue the ongoing little war between us. Yeah. Perfect.
Yours will be arriving Wednesday.
Oh no. Oh, Annabelle will love it.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
It's worth saying that the guys bought me a headset. Well, particularly Jordan, with pink flashing ears. Unfortunately, he bought the child version, not the adult version. He'll tell you that was intentional, but it wasn't. And so you got to imagine that this thing was like this on Gordy's head, right? And so it absolutely didn't fit.
Your head is just bigger than we thought.
Oh, mate, it's got so much in here, so much.
Don't get me started.
That my little daughter came home from, let's say, school and spotted said headset and decided to, she wanted to go. So she's been listening to nursery rhymes on the headset, running around the house with flashing pink ears, thanks to the guys. So, yeah, it's been some peaceful nights to get on with preparing for a few of these events while what she's listening to, and then suddenly she'll flick onto Modelers Life podcast and she can listen to Uncle Lionel and Uncle Bruce, and you'll know that she's listening to it because she'll start saying hi Bruce, hi Lionel, hi Speed, hi whoever. So it's been good fun. It's been a good present for us. So thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
And here we have John giving us a green screen and everything. Fantastic. Somebody get a screenshot.
John, what have you been modeling?
Hang on.
Hey.
I've got a
Welcome
green
to
screen,
that.
but I don't know how to put a photo on it.
We can arrange that.
Would you like to be in the Helix? Oh, you've been here.
No, I want to put my own on. I don't want to be put one on.
Too late.
So if everybody could just take a screenshot right now around the world, and we'll have a competition on the NMRA Facebook group of what's the best picture of John with a green screen. Oh dear.
Oh no.
So...
If it gets too bad, I have to take it down, right?
But anyway, so John, we've just been talking in the halftime show about modeling that we've been doing in the last 3 months. It's really the excuse show for why we haven't put out why we haven't put out a video for 2 months. So what have you been working on? Because you're a busy guy. You're the El Presidente of the NER, and we're preparing for NERAx in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, we've been doing that. Intermittent meetings with the NTRAC, or now NRail Club. I have been putting my author certificate. I just need to make a copy of it before I send that in. I'm kind of excited about that.
Awesome. So how many would that be?
That's number 3, and then I'm within a month or so, I think, of finishing the work, and doesn't like hold me over a barrel here or something.
What? I got to do something?
just send it, sign it, it'll be fine. I think we've got to say that normally John and me dispatch Speed's layout, and John uses all the stuff that I set up for Speed's layout for remote dispatch. And John was recently at Speed's because you were working in the area, and you got to run some trains, and the first thing you said back to me as the dispatcher was, is it going to be like this all night? And all I asked him for was his local. Important, it might be useful to get him across the railroad.
There was hello, how are you? Settle in, get relaxed. I'm barely in through the door, and somebody's yelling at me, "What's your engine number?"
He was just a little late.
I was a little late. I had forgotten that I was in Texas, and was, when you go across town in Texas, you need to pack a bag.
Yeah, it's not a short ride.
No, I just went from one side of the Metroplex to the other, and that took that was transcontinental.
So you've been in New England too long.
Yeah.
So I think the key thing there, the key subtle message there is that in 2023 the NMRA will hold its convention in Dallas-Fort Worth in the Speed Helix area, and there is lots and lots for folk to do because it is a big place and there's a lot to do. And I've always enjoyed my time in Dallas. I've always been well looked after by my model railroading friends in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So it's great area.
Yeah.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried. It's 5 hours away.
Hey, well, we're encouraging people. They're going to get high-speed rail as well, apparently. We can all go down to Houston and play around in a space shuttle or something. But the key thing is that what the folks in the chat want you to know, Jordan, is that they think that the kettle really brings out your softer side.
The what?
The kettle.
The kettle. We'll fill you in on the kettle
fill you in.
another time. But yeah, the kettle is a legend. Jordan was caught one day talking to the British guy about making a cup of tea by microwaving his water in his cup.
No, you watched me put the water in, and you go, "What are you doing?"
Yes.
Yeah, and I can imagine that violated some international protocol to make way.
All I
Just a
know is
little
that
bit.
next thing was
You
the
reckon
kettle
putting
showed up.
pineapple
You see,
on a pizza's bad enough?
I mean, we can cope with forgetting to put out your pinky when you're drinking from your teacup, right? We can cope with that. We can accept that from people across the pond. But microwaving water and trying to make a cup of tea is just not cricket. Even British Challenger tanks are fitted with a kettle so that they can make a cup of tea in the middle of the Iraqi desert. Okay, so it is important that you use an electric kettle or a decent kettle to make a decent brew. And Jordan, has it not improved the quality of your brews?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
All kidding aside, where do I change my screen?
No idea.
John, just be
No
careful
idea,
what you say. You are live.
And we are live, so we'll explain it to you when we're not on air. I just,
It's not easy like Zoom.
I've got Bruce Wilson flashbacks. Don't Gateway X flashback just there, right there. So Mike O'Donnell in the chat asks, when is the convention in England? Well, unfortunately, the national convention in England in 2022 had to be cancelled, and given the COVID situation, I know you don't get much news outside of North America in North America, but the news is not great in Europe right now. The mainland Europe's facing its third wave. The UK is very good with the vaccinations, but the third wave is going to arrive in the UK in the next few weeks, and it's going to just carry on like this for another year at least. And so we wouldn't be able to plan anything. We couldn't guarantee anything. Things are being moved around and pushed back that are all over the dates when that would have been. It just would not have been possible to do it. But there's always the annual British Region Convention if you want to come over to the UK. And Andy's just popped it in the chat there. We have a convention in Derby in October. That's limited to members of the NMRA only. But the big one for us will be November 2022 at Crewe. And that's when we think we'll be able to have our first back to normal convention where we're able to have members of the public involved as well. Crewe is a great venue. It's on the West Coast Main Line. It's less than 2 hours by high-speed rail from London. And you can get a ticket to London for not a lot of money. And if you go first class, it's free food and free beer. And if you want to go to North Wales, to the little trains in North Wales, it's less than 2 hours away. Scotland is less than 3 hours away. So it's a really nice location. York in about 2.5 hours, depending when you go. So Crewe's a great place. There are 7 locomotive sheds at Crewe. There's 7 different diverging routes that leave Crewe. There's a 17 platform station. The convention hotel is the railway hotel at the station that was built in the late 1800s for the railway, for travelling railway crew and VIP passengers and stuff who were transferring. Because if you were coming over from Dublin, you would get the boat to Holyhead, you would get the train from Holyhead to Crewe, probably spend the night in Crewe at the Crewe hotel, and then make your connection for your onward trip back in the good old days where Jordan models in 1905. And the actual convention site for Crewe is on site at a railway museum, which has one-to-one scale stuff. They've got signal boxes, we call them, switch towers as you would call them in the States, that you can go and play with and look inside, power boxes and old-fashioned cogs, wheels and wire boxes. So it's a great venue in the middle of a museum. We'll have the whole museum to ourselves. It'll be closed to the public unless they're booked to attend the convention. And it'll be a great event. It's going to be at least 3 days. It might be, if it's our first in-person face-to-face convention since 2019, which is still possible, then it'll be more than 3 days. We'll probably extend it, do a few trips, but more to be coming on that near the end of the year. So I think that answers the question.
On that convention, though, our Australian convention got cancelled this year, so we're back to nothing, mainly because the main train show in Sydney has been cancelled. But watch this space. We're already working with a couple of people, and we're going to have a 3-day online Australian convention. So all the people overseas will be able to dial in, and we'll have trains from virtually all states of the country. Jerry's been feverishly going around doing videos of all the layouts that would have been on the layout tour in Sydney. So we've already got 2.5 days full, and we're going to fill up the rest of them. And I would say we'd probably have nearly all 100% Australian presenters. So we'll have 3 days of Aussie. So you may have to get a translation plug-in to go into Google to understand some of them, but we'll get it.
Can we have an online guide to the different gauges?
We could do. We could have an online guide to the different gauges. I've got one guy actually who's in South Australia, which is interesting because in South Australia they have 3 different gauges, or switches as they would call them over there. And so that's something to look forward. That should be around about the end of June.
Cool. Well, Mike O'Dorney's just asked, I think it was his question for the British convention, will there be a prototype tour of the Guinness Brewery? No, Mike, there will not be a prototype tour of the Guinness Brewery. If we want a brewery tour, it will be of a decent brewery and one that doesn't make chemical beer. We will make a proper brewery tour for you to a real brewery. And if we can, it'll be a steam-powered brewery if I can wing it. But it's a bit of a trek.
It'll be a sampling tour, won't it? It'll be a sampling tour.
Well, you don't go to a brewery for the smell, do you?
Well, I've been to an alcoholic tour. I don't know who'd go on the non-alcoholic tour, but anyway, that's another subject for another show.
I always make sure that everybody, whether you drink liquor or not, is always well lubricated and well hydrated at any event that I organise. So don't worry. And as Andy has just put in the comments, my old man, my dad's layout will be on the layout tours. And yes, he has an on-site brewery. And yes, it's an on-site pub and everything that you could want. So we will sort that out and it'll be there. Okay, so end of part 1B of this afternoon's live stream. We're going to fire up the live stream again, so keep your eyes open for the part 2, which will be coming out before the start of the hour, and we'll be back with our last 4 clinics of the day. There's John. John's back. See, John's prepping himself.
He's all ready to go.
Smacking himself in the face, ready to go. So we'll be right back with part 2.